Hello everyone, welcome back to Be the Whole You. My name is Gulveg. It is that time once again where we're going to take a look at the stars above and the tarot below. And this time we're going to be taking a look at this full moon in Scorpio, April 23rd, 2024. This is the very first full moon that is after the solar eclipse that happened on April 8th. It's a really big event here in North America because it went right over North America. But astrologically, it was a really big event because eclipses, they are looked as doorways where we have the ending of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, and those cycles last for 6 months. And so the eclipse can be looked at as almost like a clearing the way, an excavation, if you will, of a new space, new potential. And then now we have the very first milestone right after that April 8th, the first lunar milestone, I should say, after that event, that is giving us like the next little toehold, the next little step in creating whatever it is that you are meant to create in this next cycle for the next 6 months. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about, there are specifically some alignments with some planets that are happening that are very much could be utilized to help you start something new, like a new project, new beginning, new career. But I'm going to talk about that. I'll talk about that here in a second. The very first thing I want to talk about is this T-square that it's happening with this full moon between the sun, which is at 4 degrees in Taurus, the moon, which is at 4 degrees in Scorpio, and it is squared with Pluto, which is at 2 degrees in Aquarius. Now, Pluto is the planet that rules Scorpio. So it's almost like we're doubling down on the Scorpio energy. And I don't look at squares as being bad. A lot of folks look at squares in an astrology chart and they think that those are, because they're considered pretty challenging, and they are, because they create friction. But without friction, we don't get anywhere. And you need a certain amount of friction between the tires of your car and the road in order to get somewhere. If you don't have any friction, then we end up sliding off into the ditch. So the key is to know how to utilize the friction and how to direct it in such a way, and also utilize the trines and more harmonious things that have less friction between them to create a balanced approach. Otherwise, you can create so much friction that then it becomes difficult to move forward because, it's all about balance, right? So, so this T-square with the sun, the moon, and Pluto, this is very much about the precipice between what was and what will be. It's about death and rebirth. Pluto is about death and rebirth. Scorpio is about death and rebirth. It's about going into the underworld, so to speak, and excavating the things that are in our subconscious that are helpful, that are useful, and integrating the shadows that if they're not integrated, end up in the background creating all kinds of ninja-like influences, patterns, unhelpful beliefs, tendencies, and habits, things, that are not helpful, but just seem to happen no matter how well-intended we are. That's what happens when shadows are not integrated. So this Scorpio full moon, which is incredibly emotional, it's incredibly healing, and I personally think is like a beautiful partner with the energy of the eclipse that happened a couple weeks ago that sets the tone for the next 6 months. The eclipse 2 weeks ago was conjunct with Chiron, the wounded healer. So I can't think of a better full moon energy to help heal, to help transmute anything that's been coming up around with that solar eclipse than the Scorpio full moon, of helping us transform in a way that will allow us to have a more helpful relationship with our shadows, and to not shy away from our gifts, right? Because that's a lot of times what shadows do. They encourage us to shrink away from our greatness. So this is a very healing full moon, and it's also one that is going to pave the way for some really helpful and positive new beginnings if we know how to leverage it right. So this T-square between the sun and the moon and Pluto. Pluto's in Aquarius. Aquarius is about new perspectives, new beginnings. It's about, it very much is about clearing the slate, so to speak. So we again have yet, when we have either things like the cards, tarot cards, or astrology, or patterns in general in life, when we're seeing the same kind of themes being repeated in like the same chart, the same reading, or just in life in general, that's really the universe like yelling at us to try to get our attention. So this is definitely a time where the chart is repeating itself. It's like, did we mention the whole death and rebirth thing? Time to let go of past, time to heal the wounds, time to direct those in a way that is more positive. Let's stop trying to amputate parts of our psyche that we don't really like, and instead create a new marriage with it that is helpful, that is loving, that is compassionate, first and foremost for ourselves. This doesn't mean that we have to condone behaviors of the past from other people that were uncondonable. It doesn't mean that we just have to get over it, but it does mean that we need to find a way forward to allow even the parts of our story that aren't very comfortable, that might be downright painful, to allow those to be a loved part of our story. We don't have to love exactly what happened to us, but what we can love is our ability as creative beings to take even the worst situations and somehow, through the magic of our own free will, to take that venom and make anti-venom out of it, to make antidote, to make medicine. We have the ability to heal, all of us do. So even if we can't fall in love with the experiences of our past that might be very painful, we can fall in love with the process and our ability as creative beings to be able to take those poisons and to somehow direct them in a way that is conducive for our health, conducive to our futures, and conducive to creating the kind of world that we want and deserve. So we don't have to necessarily love where we came from, but we can love the process of moving forward. And this first starts with loving ourselves. And when I say love, I don't mean like. So when there's this difference, right, between like and love, we don't have to like something in order to love it. We can find something useful and not really like it. Apple cider vinegar, for example, I hate the taste of it. Stuff is gross. And I've like read online where it's like, oh, it's tangy. I'm like, no, that stuff, like it tastes like an old gym sock. It's gross. But I appreciate the benefits of apple cider vinegar, for example. So we can take the apple cider vinegar of life and we can appreciate how we can utilize it and use it in certain ways that might be helpful versus trying to just kind of like let it like sit in the fridge or the cupboard and try to pretend like it's not there. And it's not going to be used. It's not going to be useful. So we have the T-square, and then we have a lot of Aries energy, which is pulling from that solar eclipse, which was all about Aries energy. And this is really teaching us about self-love. And so I just continue on into that theme of like not just loving the parts of us that are glittery and beautiful, but also loving the parts of ourselves that are messy and feel fractured and don't feel helpful. Like, how can we have compassion for those parts of ourselves? And we also still have Chiron that's in Aries, and it's conjunct Venus that's at 23 degrees Aries. So again, we're still working with that wounded healer theme that was from the solar eclipse. But now with Scorpio, we're having a deepening into that. And what it's telling us is with Venus being in the mix at 23 degrees in Aries, and she's going to be moving into Taurus very soon, where she's going to be a little bit more happy. It is letting us know that the work that you're doing on the inside, the work that you're doing healing, is going to absolutely translate into practical, tangible changes that you see in your external world. spiritual teachings of a variety of sorts, there is this saying of as within, so without, as above, so below. It's talking about the fractal nature of the universe, that how we align our emotions will dictate what kind of experience that we have of life. Doesn't mean that we control every situation, because there are situations that are outside of our control, but our emotions and how we direct our emotions and our thoughts very much will dictate how we experience those situations, whether or not they be bad, good, or indifferent. And then on top of that, the emotions will align us with certain situations more often than other situations that don't align with us. So if I'm somebody who is very, very angry, I will probably have more of I will probably be given more opportunities to be angry. I will probably see that everywhere around me. There will be people that will irritate me. There will be rude drivers and rude people in line. I will see things online that will piss me off. Like that, if you're an angry person, you will find anger all around you. If you're somebody who is centered and compassionate, you will find more compassion around you. So there is definitely a symbiotic relationship between how we feel inside and how we experience life. And there is no better sign to teach us the power of our emotions than Scorpio. Scorpio is all about the subconscious. It's all about emotions. It's all about the depth of your soul. And it's not afraid to go into the shadowy parts of the psyche to say hello and to see what resides there, and to ask those parts of ourselves that feel alone, abandoned, alienated, and pushed into the shadows, what do they need to feel loved, supported, and integrated? This is a very key question that I always ask clients when we're doing inner child healing, is what does that part need to feel loved, supported, and integrated? And then this very much kind of, it bounces off some of the other signs that are, the other planets that are in Pisces. Now, the planets that are in Pisces don't, the Saturn's sesqui squares the moon, and Saturn's at 15 degrees Pisces, which means that it's going to help us take stock. It's going to help us take stock of the past. It's going to help us take stock of our current situation, current circumstances, of our relationships, and really start doing kind of an audit, so to speak, of where we are, where we want to be, and what pieces are missing, what obstacles are in our way, and how we might, and what is it that we need to do to change as individuals that will help us align with how we want to move forward. The other two planets that are conjunct in Pisces, which are Mars at 24 degrees and Neptune at 28 degrees in Pisces, these don't necessarily align with the moon, but I do think that they are powerful anyway, simply because Neptune is about dreams and aspirations, and Mars is about taking action. And so as we are taking stock and we are, and our lives are being excavated, many people have reached out and told me that they're in flux with their careers, that they're in flux with like how they want to create their livelihood, they're making new plans, relationships are changing. So along with taking stock of what's happening, Neptune gives us the impetus to be able to dream a new dream. And Mars, with it conjunct with Neptune, gives us the fire needed to actually take action on our inspiration. And so this is actually a really supportive kind of alignment. It's a conjunction together that, although it's not really playing too much specifically with the moon, it's definitely worth mentioning, because as we are letting go of a lot of things, and this process might be quite painful for some of us, depending on what it is that we have to let go, we can really leverage into that to make it to feel like where the sacrifice is actually worth something. Nobody wants to let go of something for nothing or for something worse. We all want to be able to let go in a certain way where we allow to let go of the past and transmute our wounds. And that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work. So yeah, it's a human tendency to be like, well, is it worth it? And is absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. The other thing too that we need to take a look at that is absolutely something that we need to talk about is this Uranus and Jupiter conjunction in Taurus. So this only happens, I think, once every, 14 years was what I was reading, was like it was only 14 years that Uranus and Jupiter conjunct, and it hasn't conjunct in Taurus since 1941. So it's been a minute since these two have met each other in this house or in this sign. And so when Uranus, which is Aquarius, remember Pluto was also in Aquarius, it aligns with Jupiter, which expands anything that it touches. And it's also a little bit about luck. We will find that, and it's in Taurus, which is about anything that's solid, anything that is earthy. It's about health, wealth, home. It's also about beauty and love as well. And so we find that our physical life is going to feel less solid, which can create a little bit of anxiety. But also on a flip side of that, our obstacles will also feel less solid. So so there's a part of this that can be kind of scary, but there's also a part of this that can feel very liberating. And that is kind of quintessential about freedom. Freedom, it can feel a little scary because freedom, the more freedom you have, the less anchored in you are. And for some folks that can feel a little anxiety producing, but it isn't all bad because, we were talking about the solar eclipse, it being kind of this excavator, if you will. Well, this is definitely, Uranus and Jupiter together are now laying the foundation for the prep work. So I wouldn't say that the foundation is actually being laid yet. It isn't solid enough for the foundation to be laid at, but it is in a place where we can start making the blueprints, where we can start testing the soil. How solid is where we want to build our foundation. We can start researching, we can start inquiring. And this is where the Scorpio energy comes in, is because anything that you create, whatever next step comes for you for your life, and whether that be buying a new home or getting a new job, starting a new career, maybe your kids are graduating and you're going on to another phase of life as a parent, whatever the shift might be for you, this is creating a opportunity to be able, the Scorpio energy is creating an opportunity to go within and get really real with yourself on how it is that you feel about your current circumstances, and really real with what you desire. And then that Mars and Neptune gives you enough courage to actually take those first steps to test the waters and to go just a little bit closer. We may not be necessarily in a place where we can, catapult ahead, but we're definitely in a place where we're starting to get just a little bit more clarity. Things are starting to percolate, so to speak, as to what it is that we might want to build in the future. The other thing too is we have Mercury that's in retrograde, obviously, until the 25th of April. And so that's another thing, is that like on this day, I'm not saying that this is like the best time to start making plans for the future, but it is a really good time for introspection, because that's what Mercury retrograde gives us. It gives us new perspective. It allows us to go within. So this whole full moon, everything, it keeps repeating itself over and over again, is do the spiritual work, go within, journal, meditate, go to spiritual gatherings that are very uplifting for you. Ask yourself the hard questions, have those difficult conversations, like do the things that are going to help you the most. And some of those things might end up being things that we'd rather procrastinate on because they might not necessarily be comfortable. So Scorpio isn't about comfort. Scorpio is about being real. Like Scorpio, one of the core values of Scorpio is authenticity, and that is the whole enchilada. It's the good, the bad, and the beautiful and the ugly. It's the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons why it's so great at transformation, is because It takes the whole package, the whole person. It doesn't look at things as like you have like this part that is desirable or lovable and this part that's not. That's not Scorpio. Scorpios, even though they're known for kind of like their ability to sting and their reactivity, the flip side of that is that they also have the ability to love in a holistic way. I think acceptance is the highest form of love, where it's not I love you because, it's just I love you. So that's the part of Scorpio that isn't really talked about so much. So in any case, you have Mercury in retrograde that's at 16 degrees in Aries, and that is conjunct the North Node at 14 degrees in Aries. If this hasn't been repeated yet again, we have the North Node, which is about moving forward. It's like what it is that we're moving towards. Mercury's in retrograde, which is about communication, but when it's in retrograde, it's really focused on our self-communication, communicating with your psyche, communicating with your higher self, your guide, so more internalized kind of communication. And with it being in Aries, it's about the self. So we have heightened introspection, we have heightened intuition with that Mars and Neptune conjunction, and then this leads to more personal freedom. So the way to move forward is first to go within. That is the bottom line for this Scorpio full moon, is the way forward is first to go within. And the field couldn't be set better for that kind of theme. So let's take a look at the cards and see if they have any additional information that we can glean from, see how best to utilize this full moon in Scorpio. And I invite you, for those of you who are watching this, set the intention that the part of this reading that really resonates and that's for you, that it's going to pop out, that you're just going to know that part is for you. So how do we best utilize this full moon Scorpio energy? Okay. So very first card is the Seven of Cups reversed. And this is about landing your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations into something real. When it's right set up, it can be like we just have so many options that we don't even know what to do, so many ideas, and nothing is really concrete. Nothing is really being focused or directed in a way that it's difficult to manifest when there's so many different ideas at play. This is saying that now we're starting to get clear on what possibilities are most desirable and or the most attainable. And that this is, that for a lot of us, this is going to change our perspective on how we relate to our community. The Ten of Pentacles is about community. It's about not just inheriting wealth, but it's also like what we inherit as far as personality traits and our persona and such from our family. And it doesn't have to necessarily be blood family. This can just be people that you're in tight community with. Could even be your job in some cases too. And that it is confirming that with the Wheel card reversed, that it's not necessarily timed to jump ahead quite yet, but it is a time to get new perspective. We have the Hanged Man, which is about new perspective, and then right after that, we have the Eight of Swords, which is about self-imposed limitations, self-imposed prisons, self-sabotage, that type of thing. So in pausing, we are going to be given a new perspective on how we might have gotten in our own way, even if we didn't know it. The lady in the Eight of Swords card is holding on to her own binds. All she has to do is let go of the ropes, take off the blindfold, and she could walk through the swords. But she chooses not to. She has herself believing that either where she's at, which is also very uncomfortable, might actually be safer, or she might have any other reasons why, she's holding on to those binds. So what I see here with the Ten of Pentacles is that might be a lot of us who are seeking to either expand or change our community that we find ourselves in. And then that is the thing that gives us the inspiration to do the introspection, to pause, which then gives us kind of almost like an aha moment of like, oh, the reason why I have this dynamic with friends, family, coworkers, whatever, might be because of something I'm doing. And so who do I have to be? How do I have to change in order to change the world around me? There is this saying that I read somewhere, and at least in this book, it said that a shaman said this, and it said that the only thing that we need to do to change our lives or to change the world at large is to dream a new dream. So Scorpio full moon is inviting you to dream the dream of your lifetime and to take even just small steps forward or still forward movement to live that life that you want and deserve. All right, folks. And I hope that you have a happy and safe full moon and that you leverage it to your own choosing. And I will look forward to seeing you back here in a couple weeks. We're going to take a look at the new moon. Bye-bye.